It's really important to feel comfortable whenever you're playing the bass, and especially in your practice, you don't want anything really to get in the way. So holding the bass isn't actually as simple as it seems. This bass, if I let go, it's quite neck heavy, so it tends to go that way. Now, I don't tend to play with the strap when I'm sitting down to practice. When I'm playing live, I'll tend to have the strap so that it's not too low or not too high. It's kind of exactly really the position as when I'm practicing. So if you want to use a strap, go for it. But when I sit down, I like to think of 3 points, which is my leg here under this cutaway, the top horn against my body, and my wrist just on this little bit where the bass cuts away here. And those 3 points steady everything. So now if I let go, nothing happens. My left hand is just free to go wherever it needs to go. The other thing is that I have my guitar in this position. It's not completely parallel to the back of the chair like this. If that happens, I just can't get anywhere higher up. I'm kind of very restricted. So I just push the bass out a bit, and that's about a 45-degree angle from the back of the chair, and it's angled up a little bit. And that way, I just find that it's easy to get to any point of the fretboard I need to. I'm not kind of bashing into my body or just being restricted by the chair or anything like that. So I think it's really important to get used to that, even because you don't want your technique to get in the way of anything you want to play on the bass. So first thing to do is to get your thumb behind the neck. If you keep your thumb kind of like this, quite straight, and then just place it at the back of the neck here, it should be roughly behind where your second finger is here. Now, you don't have to be incredibly precise with this, but you want to stick to this quite closely. You'll find your own way of doing it, but we wanted to avoid pain. That was one of the main things. So be sure to keep this wrist here as straight as you can. Now, there's a degree of having to bend the wrist, and that's fine. And with your fingers curled around, you'll be able to access the notes with a little bit of bend in that wrist, but not too much. Because if you just do this now, try this. Make your wrist straight like this and clench your fist. Shouldn't be too much of a problem. But if you just now bend and then clench, you'll feel pain across your wrist here. So what you want to do is to keep the wrist quite straight, keep those fingers bent, or curled rather, and strong, not collapsing like this, okay? Now, when you fret a note, make sure that you're not on the metal fret itself. You're just behind it there. If you're any too much further this way, you get a horrible buzzy noise. So right there, you get a lovely sound, okay? So that's with these fingers quite strong. I mean, you don't have to tense them up too much, but we don't want any of that. So it's good for sort of hammer-ons and things like that. Later, you need a strong finger, even with the little finger. So you've got the thumb behind the neck, you've got fingers curled round slightly, and then you've got one finger per fret. Now, just going back quickly to when you fret a note, you absolutely don't need to press too hard. If you touch very lightly, you kind of get that sound, which is good for a ghost note. But equally, if you press down and get a note, that's quite a light touch. Now, any harder than that is not going to do anything. So that's what I try to play with quite a light touch, so I don't get fatigued if I play for a long time with that. So after that, we have this one finger per fret. Now, if you look at the gaps between my fingers here, you can see almost like a V kind of thing going on here. If I didn't have that, my fingers would be closed up and I'd have absolutely no stretch at all. So you've got loads and loads of muscles in your hands. So what you want to do is just, with the exercise that I'll show you in a second, you want to build up the muscles in your hand really slowly. It does take time, but you don't need big hands to play the bass. You just need good technique. You just need a good stretch between here. So do use this little finger as well. Mine kind of does something a bit weird when I play. It kind of goes out a bit more than the others, but try and keep the fingers quite close to the fretboard. Again, it's all about efficiency, especially when you're playing fast. You don't want your fingers to be going all over the place. If you're just starting out, then this will all feel very uncomfortable. So just take it very, very slowly. Thumb at the back of the neck. Just bring your wrist round a little bit, but not too much bend in the wrist here. Keep those fingers ever so slightly curled. This stretching your hand like this. Now, that's not really going to happen if you're just starting. It's going to take a while to get this. The further up the neck in this direction you go, the narrower the fret distances get. So start somewhere up there if you want. Much easier. This is actually the hardest place to play is down by this first fret. So do take it nice and slow. And when you are playing on the E string a little bit, yeah, your thumb at the back can do that pivoting thing. You just pivot this way a little bit. And because your fingers are curled, you can get there a little easier. If they were too flat, you'd have to bend even more. So keep that nice and curled. And when you're fretting, no collapsing in. The first thing to do is to anchor your thumb. Now with my wrist resting just on this part of the bass here, my thumb kind of naturally rests somewhere around the pickup here. So that's what I do. I put my thumb there, but I play a few different basses, and where you're going to anchor is going to differ depending on what bass and actually what kind of sound you want. If I play here, it's very different to if I play. So bear that in mind, but for now it's fine. Just rest on a pickup here. I'll very often also move to the E string or the A string. So if I'm playing the A string, I might rest on the E string. Move to the A if I want the D string. Now that's got the added benefit of muting these strings, which is always a good thing. Now you can also use your thumb to kind of pivot when you're going to some of these higher strings. So I'm not just trying to reach down here, I'm just pivoting nice and smooth. So you may have noticed there, alternating my fingers all time here. Now there are all kinds of crazy kind of right hand picking techniques you can do, but this is a pretty basic thing. Just no matter what finger you're starting on, just to use the next one and just alternate at all times. That's how you're going to build up speed, I think, and really great timing. It comes from that real consistency. My fingers are just ever so slightly curved round, not completely straight and not completely curled, just somewhere in the middle, and alternating at all times. Now, also, if I'm playing the A, the D or the G strings, I'm plucking the string and then coming to rest on the next string. So you can't do that on the E string, there's nothing to rest against. But on the A, D or G strings, it's resting, okay? So make sure you do that too. So you can start off just alternating a few open string notes. So on the E string, you've got nothing to rest against, but on the A, D or G, make sure that you're resting on the string below like this. If you don't, you get kind of a slap sound, which is obviously good if you want that, but aim for just a really nice round tone and keep everything as consistent as possible. You can use a metronome for this, or just do it without one, just to get used to it, really. You're not going to be able to play fast unless you can do this at slow speed. So just take your time, be patient with this, and then build up speed using the exercise I'm about to give you, or scales, or anything really.